Well, hello YouTube. This is BalorMage again, and today we're going to go over our new Trickster Ascendancy. This was a full reworked Ascendancy, and I have to say, it actually looks quite good. So, we don't have it in Path of Building yet, we can't play with it yet. The best thing that we have right now is this image with all of the nodes explained, and we're going to go through them. We're going to go through what I think is good, what I think might be pretty bad, and when or what you might use them for. So we're going to start with some things that already existed, right? First of all, the whole Ascendancy, much better than before. But first of all, Escape Artist, exactly the same thing. This is a way to get some evasion and energy shield hybrid stuff. Generally speaking, you end up wearing a pure ES helmet and something like a sadist garb, like a evasion energy shield hybrid body armor to get the most out of this thing. It's quite good. Obviously we'll be using it with Ghost Dance. That's been there forever. That was back when Trickster was actually usable. That was a node, and it'll still perform just as well as it did before. But the two nodes that come after it are new, and at least in my opinion, you probably won't be taking both of them. It'll probably be more one or the other. But heading this way, this is a really nice node. Spellbreaker, coming out the end of Escape Artist here, has 20% chance to spell suppress, an extra 10% if you're on full energy shield. If it were me personally, I would ignore that line. I would just assume that I'm not on full energy shield, and I would want to be capped suppression without that, so that if I do take a little bit of damage, I don't just lose my capped suppression. But the most important line for me, 50% chance for energy shield recharge to start when you suppress damage. That is an incredibly high amount. And perhaps even more importantly, it pairs incredibly well with Wicked Ward. Energy shield recharge is not interrupted by damage if recharge began recently. So it does come with the 40% less energy shield recharge rate. Now, recharge rate is something we can get a bunch more increased of. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do that. First one that comes to mind, there's definitely a ring. I do not remember what it's called. Second one that comes to mind, there's a quiver, soul something or other. I don't remember what it's called. And there's a bunch of other ways. There's a ton of ways to increase our recharge rate. I believe it might even be a Watcher's Eye mod. You would use Wicked Ward along with Spellbreaker to counter that less energy shield recharge rate as much as you could, and you could just find yourself, as long as you're taking spell damage at all, could just find yourself constantly having recharge rate of your energy shield just going all the time and not getting interrupted. That could be very, very powerful defensively. So pretty excited about that. Very interested to see how it works. Also remember, it's a forbidden jewel, so you can put that on any other shadow. Same with all the rest of the nodes. Really good. Super interesting to see what happens there. The next one that's pretty interesting here is Soul Drinker, which is just essentially just overleach. 2% of damage leached as energy shield. So that's just of damage, not of attack damage or physical damage or anything like that. So spells, attacks, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you're getting that leech. You also get the 20% attack and cast speed while leeching energy shield. And then the most important part, energy shield leech effects are not removed when energy shield is full. This is basically Slayer Overleech, where you just always have your maximum leech cap except for energy shield. That's insane. That could be really, really useful. You would probably pair this with Ghost Reaver on the tree, because maximum total energy shield recovery per second from leech is doubled. Means a maximum total is the actual total amount you could be leeching. So this is essentially double recovery. You lose the ability to recharge energy shield by going this route, which is why I think you'll take one or the other. It'll either be Spellbreaker or Soul Drinker, depending on which route you're going. But I don't think both of them will work very well together. So there's that path's all done. Then we've got the most disappointing node in my opinion, which is Heartstopper. I don't see any reason for anyone to take this ever. I know that take 40% damage, less damage from hits, or take 40% less damage from damage over time for 5 seconds. Oh, excuse me. Sounds like a good thing in theory, but in reality, every 10 seconds, 5 seconds outside of your control means it's not reliable. We cannot control it. And literally half of the time, you don't have an ascendancy. It's like anytime you're getting hit, you're flipping a coin as to whether you even have your Uber ascendancy or not, because you might as well be missing points for 5 seconds out of every 10 seconds. And then for 5 seconds out of every 10 seconds, yeah, you're tanky. But this is just going to result in, if you rely on this, you're dead. And if you don't rely on this, then there was no point in having it to begin with. So I really think Heartstopper has missed the mark entirely. If that said, take 10% less damage from hits and 10% less damage over time, literally a quarter of what it does, but it was up all the time, I'd be really excited about it. I'd think it was a great node and I'd want to take it. But any of these rotating like on, off, without my control things really don't sit with me well. I don't like them. They're not reliable. We're just going to ignore that path, at least in my opinion. Right. Okay. Moving on to the most simple one, +2 to maximum frenzy charges. Now, Swiftkiller existed before. It used to be +1 to maximum frenzy, +1 to maximum power, and it used to come with power and frenzy charge generation. It no longer comes with any generation. Luckily, frenzy charges are incredibly easy to generate. There are a ton of ways to do that. So that's good. And getting +2 frenzy charges is really leaning into the speed more than the crit. So we've lost a power charge, we've gained a frenzy charge, also 200% increased charge duration. Probably doesn't matter, but it does mean that they'll last a lot longer between packs. Like if you've cleared into a dead end and you've got your 8 or 9 frenzy charges up and you've cleared into a dead end in a map, you'll be able to run all the way back through to find more mobs before they run out really easily. So that's like a nice quality of life thing, but not really super important. But maximum frenzy charges, 2 of them. Anytime you're stacking frenzy charges, that's going to be a really nice node. We do love it, but it's not that interesting. The next one that I find really interesting, that I have so far seen a little bit of confusion on, Polymath. This is actually kind of a fantastic node. It is 3% more damage for each different type of mastery you have allocated, as well as recover 1% of life, energy shield, and mana for each different type of mastery you have allocated. Now, there's something important about that, which is when we look at the wording there, each different type of mastery. So the difference here is I've got a lot of people thinking, oh, I have 9 or 10 masteries in my build. That's great. I'm going to have like 10% recovery of each kind. That is not the way it works. We're talking about type of recovery, type of mastery. So when we get a spell suppression mastery, that counts as 1. And if we go down here to this other spell suppression and we're like, oh, I also want that one, that does not count. That is a second spell suppression mastery. So you still only have 1 mastery when you do that from this point. If we go for 2 different life wheels and we grab our 10% maximum life and our 50 flat life, that didn't count as 2. That's a life mastery. We now have life mastery and we have a suppression mastery. So this is only 2 total. So at a tertiary glance, myself and my editor went and looked through a bunch of builds that we had already made in Path Building, and we just did like a quick count, and it averaged out to be most builds have around 5 different kinds of masteries in them. At least most of the builds we looked at. Some of them had 6 or 7, a few of them had 4. We're just going to call it an average of 5 and expect that that's the case for balance, or like for talking about it reason. That's still pretty good. That still gives us 15% more damage, which is just generic damage. And that gives you 5% recovery of life, energy shield, and mana on kill. For mapping purposes, that makes you near immortal. That's better than the old Cinder Swallow Flask. That is just an absolute ton of recovery. 5% of life and energy shield and mana per kill. For mapping, that recovery is just absolutely insane. That is going to make, if you're in any form of juiced mapping, that level of recovery, practically immortal. Like if you don't get one shot, you will not die with that. 15% more damage, not that huge of a number, but not the focus when it comes to recovery like that. So super interesting. You may find this way more appealing if you're in a particular kind of build that has, 8 or 9 different kinds of masteries, which could be done, but most builds don't have that. We really are averaging around the 5-ish mark. So that's what I'm going with for that one. And then last, but very much not least, and my personal favorite node, one step ahead. Your action speed is at least 108% of base value. Nearby enemy monsters' action speed is at most 92% of base value. So this is essentially like an 8% tailwind that is up all the time and cannot be taken away from you. You could easily get tailwind on top of this though, so it's not the same, but it's an 8% action speed buff. Now, an action speed is basically just a multiplier. So we're looking at, 8% more of anything that has an action. So casting, attacking, running, and anything like that. All really, really good. 8% doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a pretty decent amount. Nearby enemy monsters also getting lowered by 8% is pretty good. Doesn't sound like a large amount, but that is still, we're looking at it now, a 16% change between the two of us. But the most important part of that is on the monster side of things, where it says 92% of base value. That means at most, and that will override anything else. So like Trickster Arch Nemesis, Hasted Arch Nemesis, acceleration shrines, like all of those sort of things that would like speed mobs up a lot. Whenever they get near you in your radius, you just counter all of that immediately and you slow them down to 92% of their base value. So all of those speed ups that they get, all of the really quick attack speeds that they're getting from their action speed increases from those sort of things, they're going to slow down. That's great. This won't affect everything. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to affect Soul Eater, because I don't think Soul Eater has like an action speed component to it. I think it's just literally attack and cast speed. So it's still going to slow them down to 92%, but it's not going to like take away Soul Eater. Like it's not going to take away the things that are just increases that aren't action speed stuff, but it is going to slow down those speedy mobs by quite a bit. So that's really nice. And because your action speed is at least 108% of base value, I believe this is going to act sort of like the Juggernaut node or Combs Roots, where you can't be brought below that action speed, which should mean Temp Chains doesn't affect you, Chill doesn't affect you, you cannot be frozen, you cannot be hindered, or you can be frozen and hindered, but they won't do anything. The movement speed portion of Maim won't affect you. All of those sort of things that would normally slow your character down, they won't do anything. You'll just ignore them and you'll get to run. This is the true speed component of the Ascendancy. It's not so much important that you get the 8% action speed buff, but it's more important that you become immune to most of the things that would slow you down in the entire game. There are specifically like 1 or 2 things that for some reason still slow down Juggernauts that have that node, or people who are wearing Combs Roots. One of them is the little graspy hand things in Delirium. I expect that will still slow you down because for some reason that doesn't respect action speed caps. I don't know. You'll have to ask GGG about that one. But most other things in the game do respect that, so this build should become immune to all of those slowdowns. So all in all, this is a pretty interesting Ascendancy now. I am almost certainly going to make a Trickster this league. I'm probably not going to league start with it, but I'm really excited about it. It looks really good. It's quite a nice rework. I hope it finds a good place in the meta now, and I do think it will. So that is all for our Trickster rework. There is a lot coming in the next week before it launches, so we're going to try and cover as much as we can, as thoroughly as we can, and I will see everybody in the next video.